When we're young, there's this deep belief that family will always be there for us. It's comforting to imagine that our kids, our siblings, even our spouse will stay close, always ready to lend a hand as we age. But life doesn't always unfold that way. Sometimes, it turns unexpectedly, and before you know it, you might find yourself standing alone. I recently read a report that said over 3 million older people in the UK now live completely by themselves. That's nearly 30% of the elderly population, and that number grows every single year. Statistically speaking, there's a good chance that either you, I, or someone we deeply care about will face that reality, living alone in their later years. Let me share a personal story. My aunt, Margaret, is 92 now. She lost her husband Charles more than 15 years ago, and ever since, she's been living independently. She has a couple of children, but they're spread out across the country, busy with their own lives, careers, and families. Watching her, I realized something powerful. Margaret built a life where she doesn't depend on anyone. And looking at her strength and independence, I began to understand a fundamental truth: if we want our later years to be happy, peaceful, and fulfilling, we can't simply hope that others will always be there. We need to prepare ourselves, deliberately and intentionally, starting today. In your 40s or 50s, it's easy to assume you'll always have a support system built in. You think, my kids will check in. My siblings will be around. My spouse and I will always have each other. But the reality is, kids move on. They create their own families, often living miles or even countries away. Spouses, heartbreakingly, pass away. Siblings face their own health or financial challenges. Friends drift. The older you get, into your 60s, 70s, and beyond, the clearer it becomes that family isn't guaranteed. And if they are there, that's wonderful, but if not, you still need to be okay. You need to build a life that's rich, independent, and joyful no matter what. That's why I developed something I call my 6-pillar operating system, or 6POSS for short. It's a foundation that keeps my life strong and meaningful without depending on anyone else. I started building this system back in my early 50s, long before I thought I'd need it. Now, in my 60s, I can say without hesitation it's one of the best things I've ever done for myself. These 6 pillars are simple but powerful. They're your true support system after 60, far more reliable than simply hoping someone else will always be there. And just so you know, I'm going to walk you through them in a very specific order, saving the most important one for last. Because that final pillar is what everything else rests on. The first pillar is physical health. Your body is the foundation, and frankly, if you don't have your health, the rest doesn't matter. Back in my late 30s and 40s, I took my body for granted: processed food, late nights, not enough movement. I figured I'd deal with it later. Well, later shows up faster than you expect. A few years ago, I had to undergo surgery to remove my gallbladder. That whole experience, the hospital stays, the slow recovery, showed me just how fragile things can get. It wasn't just the operation, it was the months afterward, rebuilding my strength and stamina. It humbled me. Today, I prioritize my physical health like my life depends on it, because it does. I'm not running marathons or punishing myself at the gym. I keep it basic but consistent. I strength train 3 times a week, nothing intense, just enough to keep my muscles engaged and functional. I aim to get at least 7,000 steps a day, not through grand hikes, but by weaving movement into daily life. Walking to the store. Taking the stairs. A stroll after dinner. Nutrition matters, too. I've shifted away from processed food and toward a diet rich in fruits, vegetables, healthy fats, and good proteins. I don't obsess, but I stay mindful. Because what you eat feeds your brain and your body. The goal isn't just to avoid disease, it's to live with vitality. You want to be the one who can still travel, still walk unaided, still garden, still dance in your 80s or 90s, not the one trapped indoors by a failing body. If you've been putting your health on the back burner, please hear this: it's not too late. Start small. Walk 10 minutes a day. Swap one unhealthy meal for a better one. Build from there. Your future self is begging you to take it seriously. The second pillar is mental flexibility, keeping your mind open and active. Aging is inevitable, but becoming rigid, closed-minded, and out of touch? That's optional. I've seen far too many good people slowly shrink their world as they age. They stop learning. They resist change. They scoff at new technology, dismiss new ideas, and before they know it, they're living inside a very small, very lonely bubble. I don't want that for myself, and I don't want that for you. In my 50s, I made a commitment to stay mentally flexible. I learn something new every month, even if it's something small. I explore new tools, learning to use my phone better, dabbling in video editing, even understanding a bit of cryptocurrency. Not because I'm investing, but because it's part of the world now. When I come across something I don't understand, I don't dismiss it. I write it down and look it up later. I stay curious. Your brain is like your muscles, if you don't use it, it weakens. But if you keep learning, questioning, experimenting, your mind stays sharp and alive. And isn't that how you want to be remembered? As someone engaged with life, right to the very end? Culture, communication, technology, they'll all keep evolving. Don't be left behind. Lean in. The third pillar is purpose and passion. If you don't have a reason to get out of bed in the morning, if you don't feel like you're contributing something meaningful, life can lose its flavor quickly. I've seen people retire, throw a party, take a trip or two, and then, silence. The days blur. They feel invisible, like their best years are behind them. But here's the truth, those blank pages only stay blank if you don't write anything on them. Retirement isn't an end, it's a beginning. You don't stop mattering when you stop working. You just change how you contribute. And if you do it right, this can be the most creative, fulfilling chapter of your life. When I stopped working full-time, I knew I needed to fill that space with something meaningful. For me, it became about creating. I wrote more. I got into photography, something I'd always wanted to try. Eventually, I even started making videos, which led to this very channel. Your passion doesn't have to be a business or a book unless you want it to be. It could be anything: volunteering, mentoring, painting, learning to cook, building model ships. It just has to light you up. Bronnie Ware, a nurse who worked in palliative care, documented the top regrets of the dying, and one of them was, "I wish I hadn't worked so hard." Not because work was bad, but because they missed out on passions and relationships. Don't let that be you. You still have blank pages. Fill them with purpose. Now we come to the fourth pillar, prosperity and financial security. Prosperity here doesn't mean being rich, it means having the freedom to live on your own terms. It's not about mansions or luxury cars. It's about peace of mind. It's about not lying awake at night worrying about money. It's about knowing you have enough to meet your needs, pursue your interests, and stay independent. Financial stress is corrosive. It seeps into your health, your relationships, and your happiness. And in later life, you deserve to enjoy the fruits of your labor, not feel trapped because you didn't plan ahead. I didn't always get money right. In my 30s and 40s, I wasted plenty. But in my early 50s, my wife Laura and I sat down and talked about what we really wanted our future to look like. We realized that the less we needed, the freer we could be. So we made changes. We downsized, sold the big house, moved to a smaller, cozier home closer to the community. We simplified. We still enjoy travel and the occasional nice dinner, but we're more mindful. There's a beautiful freedom in realizing you don't have to impress anyone anymore. You're not competing. You're just living. And for a bit of fun and extra income, I started buying and selling vintage books and toys, just little treasures I find at markets. Sometimes it's a few pounds of profit, sometimes more. But more than the money, it keeps me engaged and creative. Financial independence doesn't mean you stop working, it means you choose what you do, and who you do it for. That freedom is real pro. The fifth pillar is spiritual or philosophical strength. Now, when I say spiritual, I don't mean religion, unless that's meaningful for you. I'm not particularly religious myself. But I've found, and I know many others have too, that having a sense of connection to something greater than yourself is crucial for emotional peace. It might be nature, the universe, ancient wisdom, or a quiet personal belief. Whatever it is, it gives your life grounding and perspective that money and accomplishments can't provide. I find it on long walks in nature. There's a small park near my home, with winding trails and an old stone bridge. I often go there with a coffee, leave my phone in my pocket, and just walk. I let my mind breathe. Those walks have become my therapy, my meditation. I also read a lot of philosophy: Lao Tzu, Marcus Aurelius, Confucius. One book that really spoke to me is The Path by Michael Poot. It's about applying ancient Chinese philosophy to modern life, and it's incredibly grounding. It reminds me that happiness isn't in excitement, it's in small, meaningful habits. In kindness, presence, humility. When you develop this inner foundation, life becomes less frightening. Aging becomes less frightening. Loss becomes less frightening. You become part of something bigger. And that perspective, that calm, makes life richer in every way. And now, the final pillar, your social circle. Relationships matter more than ever after 60. But not just any relationships, the right ones. I'm not talking about having hundreds of Facebook friends. I'm talking about a small, tight-knit group of people who genuinely care about you and who you care about in return. Because here's the harsh truth: loneliness kills. Literally. It's as dangerous to your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It increases your risk of heart disease, depression, dementia, and early death. When family becomes unreliable, when kids are busy, spouse is gone, siblings far away, your friends can become your chosen family. But that doesn't happen by accident. It takes effort and shared experiences. In my younger years, I had a lot of casual friends. Fun, but shallow. Today, in my 60s, I can count my true friends on one hand, and I wouldn't have it any other way. These are the people who show up without being asked, who I can talk to about anything, who trust me with the same. No scorekeeping. No judgment. Just love and respect. I built those friendships by diving into my interests. I joined a local photography group, not to make friends, but to deepen a passion. The friendships came naturally. Starting this YouTube channel, engaging with like-minded people, that led to connections I never expected, and I'm so grateful for them. If you feel like you don't have those people yet, don't worry. It's never too late. Join a class, volunteer, go where your passions live. Be kind. Be curious. Let connections form. And make sure you surround yourself with people who uplift you. Life's too short to spend it with